Hey, what's up, everybody? Just filmed another episode of Angles with Jim and Tami Fitzhenry. So I met Jim and Tami through Vistage. They are unbelievable business coaches, leadership coaches. I mean, they come from an amazing background, a very successful background of working their way up through a huge company in the Midwest, came back here to Buffalo where they're from, and now they dedicate all their time and energy to coaching other leaders. So, whether you're a current leader at a business or you're aspiring to be one, the lessons you're going to learn in this episode are extremely valuable. They're things that no matter what, kind of area you work in, it's going to be applicable. It's going to be helpful. You're going to enjoy this one. Check it out. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Richmond Vona, personal injury attorneys. We hope you never need us, but if you do, give us a call and we're here to help. What's going on, guys?
Hi, John.
How you doing?
Great.
How you doing, Jim?
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We were talking on the phone the other day, and I get this question sometimes from people who I'm actually surprised to get it from, where it's like, well, what are we, why do you want us on? And, we had the pleasure of meeting not that long ago, but what has it been now? Like maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago now.
Let's say 5 months.
Of course, you both chair and run the Vistage group that I'm involved in, and we can touch a little bit on that. But I just think that both of you together have a unique story, and I'm looking forward to kind of diving into things about, I want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds, of course, because that's kind of how you got to where you are today, but then talk about, I think you have both a really interesting perspective, working with leaders at every level in our community, and I'm pumped to talk about it. So thank you for humoring me and coming in, but I'm excited and just wanted to kind of jump in. And I figured maybe the best way to start, and I'm actually going to start with you, Tami, is, you guys both, you're in Memphis for a long time, building your careers. You're an engineer. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the early years working out in Memphis, and kind of a little bit about maybe your evolution of becoming a leader in your own way?
Okay. So I'm actually from the area, a couple hours southwest of here, a little town called Warren, PA.
Yeah.
Went to Penn State, chemical engineering, and just knew in college that really I didn't want to be a strict engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fine, but, people told me, oh, you should do engineering. You're good at math, you're good at science. Okay, but did I love engineering? Not really. So I went to work with a chemical company out of Memphis, Tennessee, but I was working in Ohio in sales, selling chemicals, working in paper mills. Not ideal as a 22-year-old with hard hats and work boots, but a good experience.
Sure.
Had the opportunity to go to Memphis to the headquarters, and I went into a role of product management. Then, about 7 years later, went into procurement, then through customer service and logistics. And then I spent probably the last 10 or 12 years as the director of customer supply chain for North America.
Wow. Yeah.
And coming out as an engineer, you're really, science focused. But when I really started to light up was making progress with people and processes and kind of bringing them together and moving them in a certain direction. And so definitely the most rewarding part of, I spent 30 years with the same company, which I know doesn't happen these days.
No,
but
it's super rare.
The most rewarding part, and the part that I look back often, is just working with the people, watching them grow, seeing what was possible when people kind of came together.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it is pretty wild when you see what a team that's really aligned can actually do together. And once those people buy in and believe in themselves and believe in the power of, the power in numbers, it's pretty wild.
Absolutely. I truly believe and would often say, the people that you trust and the people that you genuinely care for, you will go to extreme lengths for them.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, I felt that, and I really believe in that.
In your experience when you were there, as you look back on it, what do you think was maybe the most important, or maybe some of the more critical factors in getting people to really work together and buy in? Because I think that every leader kind of struggles with that a little bit, where maybe it's like you have the one detractor or somebody who's always being negative about change. Like, I don't know, like what were your thoughts on like maybe like the things, I don't know, it sounds like maybe you had an aha moment a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious what you learned.
I think from a leadership perspective that the consistency of doing the right thing, you'll weed out the negative energy, you'll weed out the disengaged ultimately, but if you keep the course, communicate and be true with what you're communicating and who you are, that you can kind of push through all that.
Sure. No, I agree. I mean, like being authentic is important, and continuing to find different ways to communicate with different people. Jim and I talk about that a lot, even like in our one-on-one sessions where like I'm like a super direct person. So is Jim. So we can just like be super direct with each other, but that's not exactly great for most people. Right? I mean, to pivot to you too, I mean, you spend a very long time at the same company. Can you talk about, how you got started there and I guess essentially like your path through that company and then ultimately leading you back here to Buffalo?
Sure. So I followed a similar path to Tami. I started out in Maine and Massachusetts in sales, also in the paper industry. And after about 4 years, had the opportunity to go to headquarters. And we arrived there probably within 3 months of each other. And I was also in product management, so we were colleagues initially. And then I had the opportunity to go back into sales management, which I did for the first 10 years was on the commercial side of the business in North America. And then the next 23 years was spent on the international side of the business. And I started out on the research and innovation side and went into the technical services group and ran that. And then entered the C-suite probably is around 39 years old for the next 13 years till the end of my career, 15 years, the end of the career there. And led global innovation. And the last 5 years was a digital transformation that we led to get the company into the digital era. Taking a 75-year-old chemical biotech company into the digital age was a big challenge. And at 55, Tami had retired maybe just before COVID. And the company's a paternalistic place, so they allow you, if you've been there long enough, to take retirement and use their benefits until 60, 62, 65, whenever it is. And I always wanted to get back to Buffalo. That's always been our plan. We actually had bought a place back here maybe 15 years ago, an apartment here, and came back here during the first summer, I think it was of 2021, and had our first Buffalo summer ever in 30 years. Was fantastic. I absolutely loved it and was just so happy to be back.
So well, first off, Buffalo summers are unrivaled. That's our secret sauce right there. When you think back to your time in Memphis, you obviously entering the C-suite, you're a leader, right? A leader by title, you're a leader in many ways, right? Do you think you've changed as a leader now working with other leaders in Buffalo versus even, when you're at the end of your career in Memphis? Can you, because I feel like we talk about this all the time, like leadership is like an evolution, right? You're constantly learning. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it 100% does. And not to go back too far, but I'm the youngest of 4 boys. And there's 5 years between me and the closest brother. So the opportunities to lead in a house of 4 boys when you're the youngest are very few and far between.
Yeah.
You learn how to influence without any power and authority and to survive challenging situations. But learning how to lead was something I had to really pick up over the years. It was not something that I even if I had innate ability, it was never practiced as a skill. And so I would say when I began the leadership journey, the first thing I was afraid of is letting anybody know who I was as a person. It was all about entering the field of competition and working with each other to achieve a goal. And then over the years, based on some of the wonderful training we had at this organization, which we went through together, you learn how to share who you are and lead through who you are over time. And that really evolved the entire time and still is evolving, because as a person you're changing through all those years. And then coming back here, the pressures of the C-suite are not on me. So I can even more authentically lead, and it matches who I am in spirit, which really allows me to enjoy what I do at a different level.
Sure. Why do you think, because this is a real thing, why do you think so many leaders, maybe even early on in their journey, are afraid to maybe share more about who they are personally? What do you think that is? Is it just like the misconception that you're not allowed to do that, or you shouldn't do that, or it's like weakness?
I'll speak for me. It was exposing areas that I thought could weaken who I was as a leader. So I didn't have the confidence to just be myself. And I think at 29 years old, which is 28 years old, when I first had my first leadership role, you're in a very different space than when you're 48 years old. Yeah. And your confidence level is in a different spot. You're not even sure how to be a leader. At least I didn't have a certainty on how to lead. So you're looking at models and looking at ways and even looking at other leaders as examples, which is great. But really the first thing to do is to look internally and say, who am I and how do I lead? And how do I lead myself first, and then how do I use that to resonate with others, and then adjust that so others can connect with who you are.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Tami, did you go through that as well, where maybe in the beginning, leading people, you didn't want to share as much about who you were personally, or was that a little bit easier for you?
No, actually. I think it was very similar to Jim. I think when you first go into leadership, you start to mimic, or you start to do what other leaders do. And in my case, our company was very male dominant. I didn't see anyone sharing much about themselves, or even being a little bit softer and, caring or talking with people more. So I kind of tried to mimic that at first. I mean, I remember going from wearing skirts to like, I better wear pants now because I'm in this room with all these guys. So It's weird stuff. But over time, you do see that it doesn't, if it's not you, you just can't pull it off.
Right.
Like it doesn't feel right. It's not received well. And so as I aged and got a little more mature and could see what was happening, the more I was myself, the better things tended to go, even though it was different than what I saw elsewhere.
Sure. It's funny you say that, because I think you're absolutely right. Like, right, you have to be authentic to who you are as a person. It's as you let your guard down a little bit, people learn to trust you more. It's no one expects you to be perfect. I think it's almost like a relief when people realize, like, hey, this guy or this woman makes mistakes too. On the flip side, it's interesting, right? Because there's things about, I think, like me, say, for instance, as a leader, that like some people might be shocked by, right? Like that maybe everyone thinks like I'm the most outgoing person ever because of what we do, but I'm also going to be introverted. And then you have to like say, well, it's not okay to be authentically introverted in your, like you have to like go out there and make sure that you're spending time with people and getting to know them. Do you ever have something like that, something similar like that, where like, hey, like, or maybe even you're dealing with leaders now where you're like, you have to kind of like coach them out of their shell a little bit. Like, hey, it's, kind of like figuring out that perfect mix, so to speak.
I think, the answer is yes to your question. I think that it's about showing up, most of the time as that person that you need to show up as. Yes, you have bad days. You have days where you really are withdrawn a bit, but if you can, the majority of the time, go in, do your best, put your best face on, I think that overcomes a lot of the challenges. And I don't think that everyone that does is a great leader is extroverted.
Right,
I think it comes in all different packages, and just to be that package that you are. But yes, you have to do things that you don't love. Everybody has to do things that they don't love and that they're not the best at. But if you can put that out there and just come with your best most days. The majority of the time, it'd be successful.
I think it's one of the Jim Collins books. It might be Good to Great. I think that might be the book where he talks about where in his experience, most of the best leaders that he observed or studied actually were not charismatic. Which is interesting, right? Because I think people would traditionally think like, oh, these top CEOs are super charismatic and, they can capture a room, like that type of thing. Now that especially now, coming back to Buffalo and you're working with leaders from all different types of organizations and industries, do you see a common thread amongst them? Or is there anything that maybe surprises you that like either they have in common or maybe that differentiates them? I think from each other, right? Because like I think we always have like a lot of people have it like we were talking about, right? In their mind, like this is what a leader's supposed to be like. But then when you're exposed to other leaders in different organizations, you realize there might be some commonalities, but everyone's very different.
Yeah, I think the best way for me to think about what you just asked is there's an aspect of vision casting for anyone who's a founder or a CEO, or even at any level of the organization, where you have to figure out how to have people follow you towards a vision. And sometimes it feels false just standing up there and talking about this random vision. And what we talk about is how do you cast the vision in the context of who you are as a person and have your core values embedded in this vision. So when you speak to it, you're speaking from your heart, which gives you the energy to do something that even if you're not necessarily comfortable doing it, you can stand up and do just because it's who you are as a person. And you're giving energy to others by having that embedded in the vision while still showing people where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And I see different people across the spectrum of some people who do it very naturally. Some people love to talk the vision. And there's others who I'll exaggerate and say they don't want to come out of their office. Yeah. And it's too strong, but you understand the sentiments. And I really think that there's strengths and weaknesses on both sides, because the people who love talking the vision may go on too long, and they need to rein that in, versus the folks who just need to come out and be more comfortable speaking.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think about this all the time. I think sometimes there's also this misconception that people are born leaders, and I don't know what you think, like, and you can disagree with me. Like, my thought is, I think certain types of people maybe are born with certain types of qualities that would lend themselves to maybe being leaders quicker or learning how to do it quicker. But I don't agree with that. Like, you're born to be a leader. I think it's like a process. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think different roles in leadership require different things. So you could be an excellent leader in one environment and a shaky leader in another environment, simply because different expectations need to be set and different jobs need to be done. And so really it's not a one size fits all. So even saying you're born with certain characteristics of leadership, it depends on the moment that the organization that you're leading needs to make you the best fit for that organization at that time.
I agree. Tami, when you're working with local leaders in Buffalo, what do you think are maybe some of the most common struggles that they face? Like, maybe like regardless of the type of organization that they're in, is it like communication? Is it, it could be little things too, right? I think people struggle with like little things, like how do I run a meeting and stuff like that. But what do you think are maybe some of the things you hear a lot?
I think most of the time it is turning their attention toward the things that matter as opposed to the things that are consuming them. A lot of time it seems time, right? Time is the most precious asset. They have a lot of ideas, they have a lot of energy, but they don't have the time to get everything done that needs to be done. And I feel like there's just and I don't even like the word time management. I don't just mean it's prioritization, but it's really doing the things that make a difference and then getting rid of some of the things that really don't. And at all levels, I see people struggling with that and talking about that all the time.
First off, that's 100% correct. I feel like I'm gonna get I can feel like my heart race when you're saying that, because it's so true. What, out of curiosity, is there a reason why you think leaders have so much trouble letting go? It's almost like we're talking about delegating and then focusing on the right things. Is there a common reason you think for that?
Well, this isn't a proven theory, but I think that people are successful because they are able to, they have a, large capacity, they're usually pretty bright, they can get a lot of things done. They tend to keep doing those same types of activities as they move up, and they need to change the activities and change what they focus on. And it's not a bad attribute that you're able to get things done quickly. You can handle a lot of things, but it doesn't always work as you rise up. You've got to get rid of some of the old habits and the old things that you do. It's
amazing you just brought that up. I was just talking to somebody about that, and it's something that I was going to bring up with you next time we meet. He was saying the same thing, and it's somebody who's a law firm owner, like 30 years ahead of me in a different state, massively successful firm. And he was like, things that it's really hard to acknowledge and understand, that like things that got you to, like, say, this level, if you keep doing some of those same things, you won't be able to get to the next level. You're nodding. Do you agree with that?
100%. And you really have to evolve. If you think about where you are in the enterprise and the role that you play as you move up the ranks of an enterprise, your vision has to be broader. Your scope and the challenges that you face are usually broad sweeping, and you're certainly figuring out how to lead. And rather than being in the batter's box, you're outside coaching now. And one of the hardest things is not being in control of the outcome because someone else is holding the bat.
Yeah. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
I will say, though, when you are able to delegate, and I think the foundation of delegation is trust, when you're able to do that, and even if it's like and it's probably not true most of the time, but in your warped mind that it's not being done as well as you would do it, it's probably not right. Like, it might be being done better, to be honest. But in your mind, you think it's not. It is liberating, right? And I think then what happens is you go through this period where you're like, maybe it's like you're going back to feeling like a charlatan again, or like you're like, wait, but what am I supposed to do now? Like I was, for the last 5 years, I was wearing all these hats, and now I've shed 3 or 4 of the hats with amazing people. But like, so now what do I fill my time with? And you almost feel it's like you're like rebuilding yourself again.
Yeah, and the other part of that is the people who are working for you wonder what you do.
Yeah.
Because they're doing all the work in their minds.
Yeah.
And they say, what could you possibly be spending your time on? And as you know, at the top of the organization, you have to be looking out and navigating where the world's going.
Yeah.
And it's really where you should be spending most of your time, because no one else is doing that. And it's a complex world and changing so rapidly that you have to be there. And then how you're executing all the things you need to execute to navigate.
Yeah, I like try to, when I'm talking to people at the firm, and no one ever, like, they probably think they can't ask me this. They're never like, what do you do all day? It's more like, oh, we know you're super busy. And I'm like, well, let me just like talk to you a little bit about what I'm working on, because I really look at it as, I mean, obviously you got to take your responsibility as a leader very seriously, because all these people are relying on you, and it's not a joke. Like, you have to be very aware of that at all times. But I look at it still in my head most of the time is like, where we're doing this thing together. And I think it's important to share with them, like, and also sometimes maybe protecting them about, like, hey, there's this type of threat or this type of threat, but we're going to deal with it. And that's kind of what I'm focused on. And you just keep, kind of focusing on what you're focused on. But it's a struggle back and forth. Tami, when you're starting to work with someone new, like, say it could be a leader at any level, like maybe it's formal or just having a cup of coffee or whatever. I think that you must have, at least in some way in your head, a way to like kind of get started with them and kind of assess, like, hey, where is this person in their career and their leadership journey? Like, maybe what are some things that I think they need help with? Like, how do you do that?
Well,
without sharing your secrets.
No, it's no secret. I always start with, okay, give me the landscape. Where are you? What's happening? What's the company? Just to get the general feel, and then I actually say, like, so why are we meeting? Like, why is this happening? And there's a very degree of answers. Sometimes, well, I have to do this, or, someone told me I have to do this, or no, I need help here, and just start to tease that out. There's no formula, but it's really just listening, getting an understanding of when they talk about the organization, where they sit, maybe if they're not the CEO and they talk about that person, then you get a feel for what's happening. If they are and they're talking about their team, you get a feel for what's happening, and then start working those angles. But it's mostly just about really listening, and normally, without even saying what their real issues are, they'll come out just from hearing what's happening.
So I think, obviously there's all different levels of leadership, right? I mean, we always I really do subscribe to the John Maxwell principle, you can lead from anywhere, and you really should, and really you should start leading before you even have the title, right? Because that's how you get the title usually. And I don't want to make this all about C-suite execs, because I think, most people who listen to this or will listen to this are maybe working their way up through an organization, trying to get there. What's maybe some advice you would give to people, and we'll call it mid-level management, trying to work their way up to higher levels? What do you think it could be anything, just general advice, these are things you should be focusing on, or things that could help you kind of take the next step?
I guess I always start with self-leadership. If you ever want to lead others, it's imperative that you exhibit and you are in control of yourself. So we always start there. And then it's really about being mindful of how you're communicating results, what your activities are like, and then doing the right thing.
Yep.
I go back to that a lot. If you do the right things, if you're focused on the right things and you're acting in the right way, doing the right things, that it comes together.
Sure.
And so, but yeah, I always start on the self-leadership aspect. Again, even if you have other people, if you're not in control of yourself and those aspects, you're not going to lead anybody else.
Yeah. Jim, I brought this up to you the other day, and it's something it reminded me of, it's one of the reasons I want to have both of you on. When I first met you both, it reminded me of something my dad used to always say to me, and it was, be a good person both on and off the ice, right? And he would talk about that too, even if we were watching an interview of a professional athlete, be like, oh, and by the way, this guy's a really good guy. This is stuff he does in the community, yada, yada, yada. And you both, I know, take that very seriously. I mean, you're really good people, we'll say off the ice. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that, for any leader, with and without, kind of outside the organization?
Sure. I think for me, and maybe for Tami, there was a watershed moment in our careers around some leadership training, and we had this gift of being immersed in this experience in the center of Arkansas for a full week. And you were in the woods with this team of people. And it became very clear when you were faced with the challenge what your behaviors were as a leader. And it really held up the mirror for where you could be better, and then what you did well as the whole team who you're working with, you would see the exact same thing. So this experiential learning really changed the game for me to understand who I was and to allow myself to be myself. And the particular thing that came from it was worry less about why you're in a situation and put your energy towards, how do I fix this situation? How do I make this better? What are the things I can do? Even if it's things that have come outside of my control, how do I immediately pivot, shorten that time of wallowing in self-pity and moving towards being better, moving the team forward, moving yourself forward first. As Tami said, you have to manage yourself before you can, and if you're stuck in that spot. So that really helped me foundationally set that expectation for get out of the why and get into the what you're going to do about it phase.
Yeah, that's great advice. Once you get out of it, do you think you owe it to yourself to go back and look at okay, now I'm out, but what exactly happened? How did I get in that mess? Or do you just kind of keep moving forward?
Yeah, I spend less time. It's worthwhile doing an autopsy, but it should be a brief autopsy.
Sure.
Right. As long as you go in and you're really trying to learn from it and take the principles from that learning and move forward with them, not to go back and self-flagellate for being someone who made a mistake. Oh my gosh. Right, you're not the first person to make a mistake, so let's move on from this. And I see a lot of people, well-intended people, who say, gosh, I did this and I did that. I'm like, it's okay. We're all just trying to figure this thing out. Put that in a box and move forward with it. Recognize it, and then get some triggers so you can see when you're doing that again and shorten that time frame in response so that the next time it's a better result.
Yeah, I try. I can I think a lot of people are like this, right? You can really beat yourself up over mistakes. I think a lot worse than people understand. And I'm not even trying to say that to get sympathy. I don't think you really get that in this role. But it can be tough, right? And even your team who is amazing, sometimes they can let you have it, you know what I mean, for mistakes, and that's okay. That's the position you're in. It comes with the territory. I do think it's not healthy. It's not healthy to hold on to the emotion for too long. I do think it's a little important to kind of remember how making that type of mistake made you feel, and then bottle it up. And then maybe if you think you're close to doing something similar again, just open up that bottle for a second.
Sure.
Just a second.
Yeah, just remind yourself what that was like, because I think that can be a deterrent.
Yeah, it's good. It's good fuel.
Make the same mistake. But out of curiosity, when this is a common thing that comes up with people in our group. We're talking about things, or I'm sure probably maybe even with the other group you work with. I think leaders sometimes struggle with the idea of hey, I'm trying to be perfect for the team. I want to show them that I can always get these things right. And then it can be really tough, kind of what I was saying, if you make a mistake and you really are well-intentioned, we're talking about well-intentioned leaders, you're trying to do the right thing and something doesn't work out, and the team can be very unforgiving. And I'm not even blaming them. It's, hey, you're in this position, we're trusting you, you got to make good decisions. How do you kind of coach people through that? To understand it's okay for them, to kind of criticize, but to kind of get them back on board and keep moving.
So there's a particular aspect of perfection that a lot of leaders strive to, and I think the concept to put in front of them is excellence is the goal, perfection is not attainable, and you can have excellence without perfection. And the key is to, when you make a mistake, own it. Share it with the team as to why it happened, what you're going to try to do to make sure it doesn't happen again, but bring them in and be vulnerable about it to make it a teaching moment for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the perfectionist aspect of a personality is a tough one, simply because you're always striving to be perfect. It actually slows you down, and it doesn't give you room for error. And we're all human. We're going to make an error. So,
yeah, for sure. Tami, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with communication in leadership. And I think Jim was kind of just talking about clarity. And I think that's, again, a common mistake that leaders make is not providing, maybe enough clarity, around why something is happening or how a decision was come to. What are your thoughts on, clarity, I guess, in terms of your ability to lead effectively?
So I was thinking about that when Jim was talking about, in the event there's obviously been an error, you want to talk to somebody about, or talk to the group about what happened. Owning it is the first thing. You are not a perfect individual, but you own it. You explain clearly why you made that decision. Now, obviously, something else impacted that, but you had a logical path, obviously, to make that decision. It didn't go your way, and this is what we're going to try next time. I mean, but laying that out and not letting people make up reasons. If they don't know, then the tendency is for people to make up a reason why. So you tell them why you made the decision, why it didn't work, and then we're moving forward. It's always the pivot and how quickly you can pivot.
Right.
No one has a perfect path.
Sure.
But if they don't pivot, that's when they get in trouble. So
fail fast, right?
Pivot. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Another, you were talking about communicating with our team. I think we'd all agree that another thing that leaders have to learn to really tackle are tough conversations. And there's a variety of tough conversations you have to have on any given week, but how do you counsel people just at a high level of approaching those? Is it just like rip the Band-Aid off and tell them what you feel?
No. That is a thing that comes up often.
Yeah.
You have to have this conversation. So what we say not to do is don't go in, don't rip off the Band-Aid in a public area or without thinking through it, right? So it's a lot about planning, what points you want to get across. It's a lot about giving the other person warning or an invitation to have this conversation. So you're coming into a calm, safe space, and then, without emotion or not even emotion, because you're doing it from a caring perspective, right? You're not doing it from an anger perspective or just, unleashing on someone. But then going through this situation, saying this is what has happened, this is how it made me feel, this is, what I understand, now tell me about it. Kind of curiosity, not judgment. But to actually do that in a safe space, usually it turns out way better than you've anticipated in your mind when you've run through it a million times and you're just unleashing on someone and you're not getting that give and take. For sure. I think, again, as like a very direct person, early on, I would make the mistake of just being like, I don't understand why you wouldn't do that. Like, I told you to do it. Like, it should be very clear why we do it that way, right? And then you realize that's not the right way to communicate. Most people aren't even listening to you the second you start talking because it's just so offensive and aggressive. But I think providing the context and really getting into and like usually when you do that, and they're like, we take such great pride in like crazy detail in every aspect of our work and this high level of excellence because we believe that's our differentiator and that's how we have grown fast and separate ourselves from the competitors who have more money than us to market more, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And once you explain it that way, people are like, and they buy in better. Absolutely.
You have a good way about you with conversations. Now, Jim, so do you, but you're a very direct person. And you and I I talked about it in the beginning, but we talk about this a lot. You've helped me a lot with this. But I think you would agree it's because you've gone through the journey yourself. Is there ever a time, because I saw you nodding, even if you would do it slightly different, you were nodding the way Tami was explaining to handle that. So you can add to that if you'd like, but I'd also be curious, do you think that there's ever a time where you have to put that aside and just be super direct? Maybe it's like you've had this conversation before. Like, I'm curious how you handle that.
Yeah, 100%. So I grew up in a house with 4 boys. My dad was he was a loving man, but an old school guy who expected results just by the way. But at the end of the day, even when the chips were down, you had to execute quickly. I always knew he loved me. So that foundation was there. The moments in leadership to be direct are when the building is on fire and we have to run. And everybody is all hands on deck to get this problem solved. We don't have time for the other emotions at that moment.
Right.
The key is to build the foundation of care and respect and love all the months and moments before that moment when you have to have everyone all hands on deck. And it does take away some trust in those moments sometimes because you may act in a way that's needed to survive the situation, but not necessarily an endearing trait at the moment, simply because you're trying to get there. So the key is to have that foundation built like Tami was describing, which takes day in, day out respect and care for the team and for each other.
Kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid, my mom would never swear, and then once every like 7 or 8 years she'd say the F word, and you're like, uh-oh, and you're like I better listen now.
Yes.
like this is serious.
My dad didn't say the F word; he had a look, and when you saw that look, it was time to move.
Yeah,
unquestioned.
I can imagine.
Yes.
So you get to work with a lot of people in Buffalo now, or in Western New York in general, because we have people coming from, maybe an hour away or so at times. No knock on those guys. Good guys. What do you think are like the habits that successful leaders embody or exhibit on like a daily basis? Have you noticed anything?
Well, sure, it runs the gamut. They all have their different strengths. If there's a common thread, it's the folks who have, to be repetitive, they're really being themselves as they lead. They're offering clear expectations as to where they're going, and they're embedding a culture of accountability across the organization. Those are the ones who are excelling, and usually no one's really doing all three of those as well as they could be. There's always something that needs some help, and if not that, there's other problems.
Yeah.
But really, that's the thing that I see with the folks who are being successful, and they really have a growth mindset as well. The common thread is they're looking to figure out how to be better all the time and bring the organization with them.
At a high level, what do you think is the best way to create a culture of accountability?
Well, for me, you have to start with exhibiting clear expectations, and then making sure the person understands those expectations, and having a consistent cadence to discussing where they are in relation to those expectations. And those expectations aren't just task, they are task and behavior, because you're building a culture at the same time, and holding them to the accountability around the behaviors is as important, or your culture will never form.
Yeah.
And honestly, culture eats task for breakfast
100%.
every day.
Yeah. Tami, I saw you nodding. Like, did you have any like maybe methods or ways in which you would approach holding people accountable?
I think in agreement with Jim, it's about a very clear expectation. I'll work on the result side first, and it's always showing and consistently reviewing where they are and where as a team you are in terms of meeting those goals. On the behavioral side, that tends to be where people are less accountable. And I think that they say, well, he does really good work, but, he's the classic toxic rock star is what everybody says. But they let that go on, and it really is detrimental to the culture or to what's going to happen inside of the business. And I don't know if that's just us evolving. I don't know if years ago there was no behavioral standards, but it needs to be as equal a part as task completion and results, because they go hand in hand, and you can't, I don't think you can be successful creating the culture that you want if you let people behave in certain ways that don't agree with that.
Could not agree more. And if you tolerate that behavior, it becomes toxic, and then you will lose other great people because
it speaks volumes, right? You don't have to say a word, but if you let that person do that, you can't get everybody else acting over here, and you let this person.
It's something to that. So at least I'll tell you in the legal world, the law firm world, for sure, for many, 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 many years, and unfortunately still at a lot of older legacy law firms, that chauvinistic, like toxic, in different ways, like environment is tolerated, oftentimes even exhibited by people up top. I think you're seeing a big change in that, as it should be, and the legal field ends up being like just super late to the game with everything, unfortunately. But that is a big struggle. Is like in my world, if you had like a really toxic, like high performing attorney who generates a lot of revenue,
right,
you gotta get rid of that person, and people just struggle with that concept. And maybe because of the stories I've been told from others, I don't struggle with that concept. Like, to me, it's like, if you're toxic, like, I don't care. You gotta give people some, I think, room to grow and to correct. But if it's not correcting, you gotta rip off the Band-Aid. It's tough though. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with that a lot with people.
Yeah, we've lived that actually. And while trying to build a culture, and finally at one point, the decision was made to let this very valuable person from a knowledge standpoint, extremely valuable, and could no longer tolerate the behavioral side. Mm-hmm. And it rocked the entire company that this king of knowledge could be let go. Yes.
Yeah.
And it changed. I mean, it changed everything.
And I know who she's talking about. Yeah. Just this is a corporation of thousands of people. And I know just who she means.
Yeah. Yeah.
When someone comes to you, because I got to imagine this happens a lot, without divulging any, obviously, personal stuff, but like someone says to you, like, hey, I got this man or woman, they're a top performer, they have an amazing knowledge base, they've been with the company for 15 years, but they're just a jerk, putting it simply.
Sure.
And there's examples of it. Like, how do you handle that with them? Like, what is like some like real concrete advice for maybe people, someone who's listening who's like, I got someone like that? Because like a lot of people do. Like, how do you what's the process on that?
So the first thing I want to understand is what they're afraid of if this person weren't there. And they unpack these particular items of how the organization is going to be impacted by the departure of this person. And then they'll typically say, well, he's been here for a long time, and these people really think he needs to be in the organization. These people could be in positions of influence. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. Another is he is a high performer and we're not going to survive. Another one is we have no one to replace him. So then we break it down into, okay, tell me what this person does in segments and who could do this aspect of this job. So we start getting the fear removed from actually making a decision. Mm-hmm. And then the next question is, which usually will help them finalize their call, how will it feel if this person isn't in the organization from a cultural perspective once they're gone? Mm-hmm. How much time will you have back in your day because you're not managing all of the emotional situations that this person is creating? Mm-hmm. And typically 1 week after the person has left the company, folks in the business come into the leader's office and say, oh my gosh, you can't believe how much better it feels not having this person here anymore. Mm-hmm. And the energy of the whole organization goes up a notch.
What about a situation where maybe the negative or toxic behavior isn't reaching like a lot of levels of the business, meaning it's only really being felt in, let's say, a leadership level or in certain levels, and it's not obvious at all to other levels in the business. And to those people in those other levels, this is an amazing human being. They're a huge contributor, yada, yada, yada. I think that's another like element that like causes a lot of pause or fear in people, and getting rid of those people, because they're like, oh my gosh. Because then once you let somebody go, you can't like tell everybody what this person was doing. You can't say anything really, especially under like law, right? Like how do you deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, this is where I think culture becomes so important, and it's happened many times in our careers, because even if one part of the organization feels this person's doing well, they're not doing the job that they need to do. So oftentimes the leaders of the organization who are making this tough decision are seen as the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And the way to combat that, because I really think there's no way to avoid it, you're going to make these decisions where only you are privy to the information to make the decisions, is to let them know who you are, let them understand where you're going, mm-hmm. and have them have their own experiences with you. Mm-hmm. And it's a balance between having those positive discussions versus having this one negative event occur. And I think the challenge with a lot of leaders, regardless of where they are in the organization, is they don't take the time necessarily to build those relationships, mm-hmm. so that they can afford to make that tough decision that they'll never be able to explain to anyone else, but they get the benefit of the doubt because they have those relationships built.
He or she must have had a reason that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? I like being able to tie those events very simply to not aligning with our core values. Mm-hmm. And then I think it gives you strength with your core values if people say, oh, they don't really know the detail. You don't have to say any detail, but if you're really living your core values and somebody isn't aligned, this happens. So we're serious about these 5 things that are on the wall, and it gives you that trigger, that lever to pull and to really take them seriously.
Yeah. It also puts the leader under pressure to actually live those core values, because they'll say, well, you didn't do this.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to admit that this was a mistake, and the intent of living the core values is what we're going for. We all are aspiring to these core values.
Yeah.
At the same time, this individual was unable to routinely meet the expectation of living our core values.
Right, and that's what we talk about, right? Like with people emerging and going into leadership positions, it's like, congratulations, just understand like the bar is even higher now. Like you really have to live all this inside this office, outside of this office. Like this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. You mentioned something earlier about when you were talking to people, like say, like to hold them accountable and providing clear goals, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've had times when you've set, like maybe they came from up to even higher than when you were, or you create them yourselves, whatever it is, but you create like aggressive goals, but you feel confident that your team can hit them. Mm-hmm. But you have people they're good people otherwise, but maybe it's their anxiety, nervousness about it. They just like get really worried and negative about the new goals. Mm-hmm. Even if you show them the blueprint, like this is where we do this every, like you just show them that it's going to happen. Like, how do you deal with that? Like maybe that apprehension or that anxiety that comes out as negativity and can spread pretty quickly about like, say, like goal setting.
I think that breaking it down, like you said, and really telling them, you can do this. Mm-hmm. And then understanding is there an objection, or not in terms of what the goal is, but what inhibits you? Right. What can I do to help you with that? What's in your way of that? And just working them through some of the emotion of why are you scared by this number, without saying why are you scared by this goal. And I think removing the objection or helping them overcome that, and then showing them the progress, and then, watching with them and kind of coaching them where they're not doing things that can help.
Right.
I think it is a fear typically. Yeah. It's not that they don't want to jump on the goal, or that they're, it's not necessarily a laziness or I don't want to work that hard. Typically, if it's a good person, they're just afraid. Yeah. And so getting that out on the table and kind of working through that with them.
Yeah, Jim, you've probably seen it too, where people are given goals for the first time. Maybe they came from another industry that never had a goal before, or the company for the first time sets a goal. Is it just like maybe like it's just a new scary thing on top of everything else? Have you ever seen that before?
Well, if it's a new experience because goals mean accountability. Yeah. And so some folks, usually your high performers, are going to actually love an environment where they're being measured and want to know how well they're doing. They want a scoreboard. And then there's folks who just haven't had that experience before, so they have to get used to being evaluated and knowing that it's really for the benefit of them, to help them be better in the organization, help the organization be better. So tying it to something larger than them, I just think that the ability to have belief in the person and show them that I was not necessarily good at this because I didn't need this aspect as a person, but showing that you believe in them and believe that they can get it done goes a long way to helping them through this accountability aspect, especially if it's new to them. Yeah,
I agree. And I think about this sometimes, like everybody has like a unique set of circumstances and experiences in their life. And there's a lot of people you're talking to in these types of situations where you're setting these goals for excellence or these objective goals for performance, and you truly believe in them. Like you wouldn't set them if you didn't think they could do it. Like that's no one's going to do that, right? And look, and if you make a mistake, you got to adjust it for them, right? But I think a lot of times people just have never really believed in them like that before. People have never pushed them like that. Yeah. They've never been in that type of environment before, and you got to understand that and work with them through it. Yeah. And it's you got to keep working at it. And I guess it goes back to communication, right? Mm-hmm. So as we're kind of like nearing the end here, I just have a couple. I have one question left for both of you. I'm going to give it to Jim first. So you get more time to think about it. It's going to be the same question. I'm going to put Jim in the hot seat. And then we'll ask a couple fun questions at the end. But what do you think makes a leader worth following?
Yeah. For me, I need to see that they care about me, and they need to be striving for something great, something that's worthwhile for me to spend my precious time in life working with them towards achieving that goal. So it's the caring first. I got to know they care, and they're with me, and they're going to forgive my mistakes, yet challenge me the whole time to make sure that I can excel and help whatever it is we're trying to do and be a part of that with them. That's what inspires me as a person.
Love it. Tami?
That was good.
That was good. That was good.
I know that's on record, right?
Yeah, I'm getting a free coaching session right now, to be honest.
So what inspires me to follow a leader? I think that I need trust. I need to be sure that the person that I'm following has the grit to follow through with whatever we're doing and the capacity. And then the care or the love or something. And then if I have those things, I would pretty much go with anybody. I mean, it's the trust, it's the fact that they can do it with the grit, and then the fact that they're not going to dangle me out there because they really do care. So
Yeah. You got to care about your people, right?
Yeah, and it's and the goal is the team thing. It's not their goal. It's our goal, and it's bigger than whatever that one thing is. It's the bigger picture thing.
Sure.
So
I love it. All right, a couple softballs. What's your favorite restaurant in Buffalo, Jim?
It's
don't you take my answer.
oh my gosh. Okay. Can I do two? I should do one.
Sure, you can do two.
All right, I got Lombardo and Aroma on Bryant.
Okay.
Those are my two.
Tami.
Unfortunately, I eat with him most of the time. Those are, in fact, my two favorite restaurants in Buffalo.
Okay. All right, last question for you both. Tami, what's one thing that you wish people knew about Jim that they don't know?
Oh, so much. That they don't know?
Yeah, that you think they might not know.
He looks more angry than he is. He sometimes has a terrible look on his face, and I won't use the acronym, but he's not really that angry inside. So he's quite soft inside, but he comes across with a semi-rough exterior at times.
Some would call it an RBF.
Yes. Which I didn't know what that meant until 6 months ago.
And Jim, what's one thing about Tami that maybe people don't know you wish they did?
Well, Tami has a tremendous capacity to handle a variety of things in life, as I've been with her in our marriage, and from caring for children to running a home to having a career to tolerating my poor behaviors and then being a great partner to explore the world with. So this incredible capacity for so much is hidden by her quiet demeanor and her willingness to let other people shine. So I'm a lucky guy.
Love it. Well, I feel lucky that you guys came here. I appreciate it. This wasn't that bad, right?
Not at all. It's an absolute pleasure for me.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, John.